Awesome.
That was
Hi
like
guys.
super late. It's super delayed. You said three, two, one, clap, and on clap I clapped, and then you clapped after the clap.
That's the delay because on my end I saw you clap the same time I did.
Okay,
So
that is so confusing. I don't know what to do.
yeah, I don't know if I'm the one having the delay or you are. I mean, to an extent, update. I've actually had issues with my internet, and I'm 100% certain it's because my router is outdated. Oh, it's a modem slash router. So
100%, I guarantee it's because of Russian spies. I'm just saying. It's all the Russians destroying our internet in America. They are destroying the foundations of what makes America great, internet. I'm just kidding. That's not true.
I was trying to gather the words to come with like a good clapback or a good like witty thingy, and I got nothing. I got nothing. The world's crazy out there right
Yeah,
now.
it's kind of a ridiculous time to be alive. But in a good way? I don't know.
Is it? I mean, it's yes and no. Like
Like,
we're not technically involved yet. I mean, we're positioned to,
yeah, okay.
kinda.
Like, had a huge, like, pseudo existential crisis slash breakdown. One,
Did you really?
yeah, because, like, I started prepping and stuff, and, like, I, like, bought a whole bunch of gas cans, and, like, I stabilized it, and, like, I was like starting to ride my bike to work and everything to make sure that like my vehicle has gas in the event that I do need to, I don't know, try to outdrive a nuke at some point. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, but like panic does that to people.
Oh no, for sure. I've come to the understanding that I'm fucked, considering I am in one of the major cities of the United
Oh yeah.
States.
On top of the
And
fact that you have a major navy port nearby, uh,
yeah,
and the Coast Guard likes to hang out there too.
yeah,
Yeah. No.
yeah. Uh
Yeah,
huh.
yeah, that's really
Yeah.
great, really wonderful. Living in the city is great, isn't it?
It's gonna be a fun
Well,
time.
it's gonna be great because nuclear winter's gonna happen, and your shoreline is gonna like disappear.
Yeah, pretty much. Like that's why I said, like, if it comes down to it that, this shit goes down and we get attacked, I'm pretty much fucked. So right now I'm just living life. I'm breathing. I'm happy.
Yeah, yeah.
Until I'm not.
I mean,
Just stuff like that.
taking it day by day, second by second. All it would take is like a couple milliseconds and a correctly placed bomb, and all of a sudden you're atomized and you're all around the world all at the same time. It's like the first time you can actually
That's
be everywhere at once.
that's kind of cool. Kind of reminds me of Thanos'
Yeah,
snap.
kind of. You
I guess
just like
technically I'll get
dematerialize into dust.
and the thing is you can't bring it back.
Yeah, no.
So
You
there's
can't
that.
unatomize a person.
No, I'm just everywhere.
Yeah. It's like the
Although
the final
uh-huh.
text from the movie with Scarlett Johansson, Lucy.
I actually have not seen
Oh my
Lucy.
gosh, it's actually really really good, and it does kind of show how very little people understand of the human brain in general.
True.
So it's kind of funny
True.
that they like run with
Um,
like probably the least well understood like understanding or the most base level understanding of how the brain works. Like how they say that 10 people use 10% of their brain at any given time. I think we
right.
might have mentioned this previously, but no, you use about 99 to 100% of your brain at all times, but it's the amount of output, the total amount of output that you're doing that you do not go above 10%. So, yes, you
Right.
could activate every part of your brain at once by like juggling while doing math problems and like I don't know, trying to
Mhm.
think of something emotional at the same time. You get somewhere around like 97% of your brain activated at the same time.
Yeah. Would you be able to configure it out? Probably not.
No, you probably wouldn't be able to do a lot of that stuff or telling a funny joke while trying to do that while keeping comedic timing while juggling. I don't know. There's a lot of things that you could potentially do to activate your brain, but you're not going to get 100% output at any given time unless
Right.
you have some sort of neurological disorder that removes certain limiters on your brain.
Exactly.
Because our brain protects itself from itself for a reason. Like, if we were to, like, actually effectively use our brain the way that is depicted in a lot of, like, really smart things, like, the, what's it called? Like, the man with the computer who wore tennis shoes or whatever is called. It is like a, I can't remember. It's like a late, mid to late 80s movie, maybe. I can't remember. Either way, dude gets struck by lightning and all of a sudden he's a supercomputer, but he has no social skills.
Are you talking about Short Circuit?
No. That's Johnny Five. We talked about Johnny
Yeah,
Five previously.
Yeah, we talked about Johnny Five before. That's why I'm just like,
no,
why
like I think this guy was like a telephone like cable repairman or something, and like he's up like by a telephone pole during a storm for some reason because like they didn't have like operational safety health and something administration, OSHA. They didn't have OSHA back then for some reason, and like he's like trying to fix something in a storm. He gets struck by lightning and all of a sudden he's a super genius. I think it's the computer who wore tennis shoes, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. I do not know that movie at all.
Yeah, well, anyway, like basically speaking, you kind of have to be an idiot to be a savant. Like, idiot savant is the full term, but anybody who is stupidly good at one thing is stupidly bad at the other things. Most of the times, the things that are negatively affected are social skills. Now, on the other side of things, there are people who are not bright at all, but are completely the most sociable people in the world. You know, and that's why they end up on MTV.
Agreed. Agreed. And it's a very hard rarity to find someone in the middle. You know, someone who's extremely well-rounded.
Like, the jack of all trades are the people who actually end up in, like, sales and stuff. They're reasonably sociable, and they're reasonably, like, intelligent. But, unfortunately, they sacrifice a lot on the true interpersonal connection side of things because they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree to that so far. Like, the really blah, 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 English, I cannot speak it. There are definitely some things that categorize us as people that allow us to, you know, like you said, if you end up being the jack of all trades, you tend to do well in sales, and that's a very fair statement to say.
Well, it's because if you're uniquely skilled at everything to a certain capacity, you also have interests in a lot of things, which makes it easy for you to simultaneously interest other people in the things that you're interested in. So having a lot of hobbies, having a lot of things that you're interested in and have a base amount of knowledge of makes it easier for you to connect with people, and therefore by connecting with people, it's easier for you to sell stuff to them. It's just the way things work, unfortunately.
It's true. I mean, guilty is charged on that end as well. I mean, you know, with past positions and past jobs and past experiences, it's just like being able to do that, right? Being able to relate to that person, which is the reason why, like, when it comes to pop culture, I'm pretty sure that I dominate a lot of base ground because of that.
Yeah,
right?
No, you're going to get, like, with your previous employment at a particular topic of hotness, you were able to get a lot of people to come in, hang out, and eventually leave having something that they were already interested in, but you were just the catalyst to their purchase. That's all you ever want to be as a salesperson. You just lower the barrier of entry for the actual purchase.
Yeah, pretty much, which is true. Oh, that spot. Not something that we should probably what do you call it? Name drop. There you go. That was the phrase I was looking for.
Hence you use the colloquial term for the emo store. Because because that's all they used to sell was emo shit.
Very true.
Yeah, like
Very true. But I'm sure that's going to be a topic of discussion
uh,
in the
oh yeah,
future.
no, like history, like it's funny, like there's this thing that's happening like on the internet where people are like, what are like historians 1,000 years from now going to say about this time in history? It's like apparently they listened to a Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
being a little snooty.
like
Like the stuff that we listen to now is going to be considered classical music at some point in time.
see that's hilarious to me considering the fact that classical music was like the greatest bop of all time back when it was brand new, right? Like he's like
Right.
I'm trying to think of like you think of like European concerts and whatnot. You'd have like the chamber orchestra or whatnot performing the new piece from this one artist or this one composer and stuff. And
Composer.
like they've been rehearsing this for like weeks at a time to make sure that they get absolutely everything perfect. And then the conductor comes up and he announces it and everyone gets quiet. And then, you start with like, I don't know, the strings, they start up like a very soft melody and stuff. And then you have like the rest of the orchestra filling in the music. Meanwhile, everyone in their seats is like experiencing the sound that they otherwise do not hear in their day to day because recorded music wasn't around yet. So like
No.
I can't even fathom that. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me what that experience is like because even children listen to recorded music now all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like to go from
Imagine.
like folk songs and stuff and working songs, which is what most people would have been listening to back in like I want to say like the middle age, like the tail end of the Middle Ages when musical instruments were prevalent. And like around the Renaissance era when music actually started being written more often and wasn't just associated with churches and religious
Right.
ceremonies. Like a lot of music has to do with, praise and worship just because it's what survived. Now, no doubt there was some bard running around like making salacious songs about certain things here and there, but obviously they didn't endure the test of time, unfortunately.
Very unfortunate indeed. But can you imagine? Can you imagine that? Like you were describing, because I wanted to just put some background noise to what you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was like the strings come up, and then you have that one person like, "Woo, yeah, keep going! I want the horns!" And then it's just like, then no, it's utter silence because you're right. It's just like one of those things where it's
No,
like
well, it was an
they
experience,
don't.
and not only that, the
Yep.
expectation is that you weren't going to mess up everyone else's experience by your like overreaction to this thing. So like everyone had to be withdrawn, and everybody had to be like restrained in their enjoyment of the performance, so that you didn't ruin the performance for anyone else. Like, which is completely different from nowadays where like people will blast their music while other people are listening to music, like, or they'll blast like whatever audio they're listening to drown out other people's audio and stuff, or or like videos playing over. Like, we have so much sensory overload in our day-to-day life that just didn't exist until basically the turn of the century, turn of the last century, so 1900s, because like music on record players became more available, and then we started recording things on like all the way up to like the 50s is like record players, 60s still record players. Digital tape came around late 70s, early 80s. And then we started being able to record TV and everything as data became easier and easier for us to record and manage things that like I don't know like the full timeline and the breakdown, but like the idea of the Walkman back in like I want to say 81, like being able to walk around and listen to whatever cassette you shove into this device at any given time and replay a perfect recording of a performance of a song. And then like there's mastering and stuff, like which is getting the absolute best performance of a song ever, which is completely different. Like technically speaking, every radio edit of any song is just snippets of the best performance of that particular part of that particular song by that artist, which means that there's physically no way for a person to recreate that performance 100% of the way through, because it is 100% all the way through. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, I imagine people like Brendan Urie, right? He's to those who have been living under a rock for the last like 20 years, he's the lead singer of Panic at the Disco. He is Panic at the Disco. Let's be real here. He even at his best like all of their live performances, he purposefully sings all their songs an octave down, because he would absolutely destroy his voice if he tried to do like every single one of his songs where he does in the recording booth. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's just, although he's extremely skilled and gifted, as well as trained, like you don't just like hit those notes out of nowhere.
No.
Like, you have to practice. Like, he's refined his craft, he's refined his instrument, and that's where he's at now. He won't be able to do that forever. Like, he has a very narrow window where his voice is going to continue to be like where this level of amazing. As he gets older and his vocal folds like stretch out and stuff, he's going to be able to get like deeper notes and stuff. And like, he might learn like fine tuning of certain things, but his physical range isn't going to be where it's at right now for very long, which is why certain songs that he used to sing, he doesn't sing anymore, because they might actually honestly be out of his range.
Yeah, or it's going to be a stressor on his
which would like negatively affect
voice.
him. That's why a lot of artists actually do that. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure they changed the key of the live performance of a lot of Fall Out Boy's live performances. They had to do that. The one My Chemical Romance concert I went to, Gerard, he had to lower it by a half tone or a semitone, because if he hadn't, the resonance inside of the Blaisdell Arena where we were listening to, it was actually going to like negatively affect the speakers because of I can't remember which song I can't remember which song it was, but like if he had done it in its original key, the resonance of the arena would have been negatively affected or something like that. Like it was actually like bad for the arena if he were to sing that note, which gives credence to like the whole myth of the brown note and stuff. But like, it's not the truth. that's not what I mean. But like it's just because everything falls apart in Hawaii. Let's be real. It's the corrosive environment, and I'm not just talking about the people. I'm talking about, the actual air is like slowly oxidizing literally everything.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's what happens, right?
Yeah. When you live on an island and you're surrounded by salt water everywhere.
Oxidation is everywhere.
Yeah.
To go alongside of that, as you were tracking the history of recording and like film and audio, it's crazy how such short time we went from digital tape to now cloud streaming, right?
Oh yeah,
comparatively, right?
Essentially under 20 years, because you went from, in the consumer space, I mean, because in the professional space they've been using digital tape recording for audio since, I want to say, late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, like,
I mean,
magnetic tape has been around for a long time, like relatively a long time. I don't know when it was originally patented, but I know for a fact that the ability to record data on a tape has been around for a while. Like, and they gained a lot of that from the film industry.
for sure.
Understanding
For sure,
Yeah,
for sure, for sure.
understanding how light can affect a film and whatnot. It's crazy. It's really ridiculous. And then like the evolution of it from the data being recorded on a volatile tape, moving it over onto a spinning disc media with like, you know, the Discman and like CDs, the compact disc. And then higher density formats like DVD, Blu-ray, and now we don't even need physical media. We have cloud storage, which is the ridiculousness of how expansive the internet is. Like when we talk about the internet being like several hundred, like I can't even remember, like brontobytes. I think that's what we're up to. It's so okay. So gigabyte is the one that most people know. Now that gigabytes are small, we're up to like most people having terabytes of storage, and like
Right.
it's pseudo commonplace in the PC space. Like a petabyte is 1,000 terabytes, and that's in like server spaces. I can't remember the next one up, but I think it's 1,000,000 petabytes is a brontobyte. I could be wrong, but like to put into perspective, every song that has ever been recorded can be compressed down and basically stored on less than a terabyte of space. Like very, very easily. You know, like most songs are like 3 to 4 megabytes. If you have a higher fidelity format and stuff, like or like longer songs, sometimes they get up to like 10 megabytes, but most of the time they're not. If you have really low format or like really high compression formats, like they can get like small enough to where you can play them off of like the original 256 kilobit like flash drives. You can have more than one song on there depending on how effectively compressed they are. Compression is another thing that's like really interesting about what's happening with music, because we have lossless compression formats which exist that can still shrink something down but lose nothing. Like MP3 is a lossy compression format.
Right.
Technically speaking, I think it's like 97% efficient at compression, and like 3% of total data gets lost because of the compression. I could be wrong. Like it might be better now, but that's like the original format is that it worked that way. And like there's so many things that have just happened
in such
a short amount of time. Like,
yeah.
like I mean, what was it? 2001 was the first iPod.
Was it? I'm going to fact check
Yeah, no,
that.
I feel like early 2000s iPods like started popping up around like places. I could be terribly wrong.
First iPod. Let me see. First iPod. When did it come? Yeah, you're right. 2001.
Yeah, right. So
October 23rd.
yeah,
2000.
that had a very small hard drive in it that spun. Like a very, very small. I can't remember. I feel like it was like maybe like 512 megabytes or something like that. It wasn't a lot. It was tiny. Like I think it could hold like 15 songs or something like that.
I think you are correct, because as I'm fact checking, like it's showing 256 gigs. I was like, no, that's probably
No.
that's the last iPod.
That's really
No,
freaking new.
That's the last.
Like I don't even think like. I'm pretty sure the 4th gen iPhone didn't even have 256 gigs of storage.
Let me see. First iPod storage.
You're making a face.
First iPod had a monochrome LCD featuring 5 gig hard drive capable of storing
Oh, it's 5
1,000
gigs? Really?
songs. I think that was the maximum.
Yeah, that sounds about right, because there's no way it wasn't smaller. Like, I know they had smaller ones.
Well, yeah, obviously,
Yeah.
because like the last iPod I had was 180
28 gig.
gigs.
180?
Yeah, it was some weird number. I can't remember. I can't recall.
Yeah. No, after the 4th gen iPod Touch, that's where, like, I stopped having iPods and I actually got a real phone.
I still have my iPod. It's here someplace, and it has a skin from Skinit of a Decepticon symbol on it. Like, I really enjoy that iPod. I can't. Yeah, I think 5 gigs was the max storage for the original iPod.
That sounds about right. That's a lot more songs than I thought.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I'm trying to think. Like, when I had iTunes, and we do the illegal go through LimeWire. Previous to that was Napster, but LimeWire, and then followed by FrostWire, where seeding was involved. Even my entire collection didn't fit. I think it was 120 gigs, which would make more sense for my iPod.
Yeah.
But
that's when it, like, people would spend days, like, categorizing, renaming songs, uploading to theirs, and then they would seed for you to download and stuff, because no one seeds anything anymore, because seeding is illegal, leeching is not. It's weird. Like,
well, at that point in time, seeding, when you were seeding off of like X amount of people, it would just literally take bits and pieces off of everyone else's data, right?
Okay, so the correct balance of seeders versus leechers, it was like something that you had to, like, really look at. These are all things that kids today will never understand.
No,
Like,
not at all.
They will never, like, because not everything was available, on a streaming service back in the day. No, you had to, like, wait until somebody decided to get a physical copy of that media, break the encryption on that media, upload it to a server, normally somewhere in Russia, like either Russia or, like, I don't know, the Philippines, like, randomly.
We'll just use that as an example.
Yeah, as an example. Like, and then you'd have to wait until it got its bit rate up. You also need to wait until enough people copied it so that they could seed it, so that more...
While they were seeding as well.
While they were leeching data from other people. Like, it's such a crazy thing. Like, all of this happened basically under the government's nose, and no one cared about it until big media started saying, hey, that's theft.
We're not gaining any money from this.
Yeah. But what they lost in money, they learned in notoriety. Like, My Chemical Romance would not be a band if it weren't for torrenting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that wouldn't have occurred if
Yeah,
there wasn't, like, things such as torrenting
or like free
like,
music sharing. Like, any amount of, like, free music sharing. If it weren't for that, there's, like, any number of people who just would not have been discovered. Like, YouTube has single-handedly created more artists in more fields than almost any other, like, platform ever. Like, because there are, like, independent people that post only to YouTube, and it's all free. Now, mind you, like, they make their money off of merchandise and stuff, which is, like, more power to them. Or sometimes they make money off of AdSense. Once again, more power to them. But if it weren't for the slow development of clouds, or I guess, like, crazy amounts of data storage, like the relatively slow progression of crazy amounts of data storage, this wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair to think about, right? Because without that, we wouldn't be able to get where we are now.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't be recording this, because we wouldn't, like,
True.
the computer that I'm using to like render out this, or like the software that we're using to record, the microphone of which we're like everything needed to progress exactly the way it did for this to happen right now. If even like
Can you imagine?
like if even one thing went off, like this wouldn't be physically possible.
Right. But can you imagine though, like we went from an era where in order to get our own not even ringtone, but our own like message tones, we would have to go and physically record it with the device that we had on our phones. This is this is definitely before the smartphone
either
era.
physically record it with a device on your phone, or pay your phone company to purchase the rights to some shitty ringtone. Like
Yeah.
like what is that? Like I go back and I look at that, and all I can think is like, wow, no wonder why piracy came up and like was a big thing. Like they nickel and dimed people for the right to use music that is in the public domain. Like no
Yeah.
one's owned.
Yeah.
Like Beethoven, literally every piece by Beethoven is in the public domain, and people had to pay like $5 here, $10 here to get like Beethoven's Fifth as a ringtone, because like for no particular reason somebody wants Beethoven's Fifth as their ringtone. Like what?
Yeah. And also the whole aspect of what is it? Right to repair, which is a whole different category of things.
No, which is something that we've been fighting for forever. Like it's discussed, and like the thing that's like negatively affecting us is the car companies have been fighting against right to repair basically since its inception. Because it used to be that anyone could wrench on their car, but now there are warranties that prevent anyone from wrenching on your car, or like computer systems that will literally nuke your car if you try to work on it without a specific tool, which is antitrust. Like, I own it, I should be able to fix it, I should be able to acquire parts for it at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
But
for those of you who don't know, right to repair is something that you don't really think about, but it's quite important. And I know Caleb's talking about it for vehicles, but it literally goes for anything that has some sort of technology in it.
Anything you own at all, you should have the right. I mean, right as in you should be able to, or be able to seek out somebody who can repair it at a reasonable rate. You shouldn't have to go through the company, because if you are essentially going through the company to repair something that you own, that you already own, that you should be able to fix on your own, but the only people who provide those services of repairing it are the people who own the device, you're essentially just renting your device from this company. Like, that's not ownership.
And
that completely defeats the purpose of ownership.
Yeah, and it's quite heavily annoyance and a frustration for not just vehicles, but like phone companies as well. Because, for example, like, I have an iPhone, and the thing is that in order for me to just like any known iPhone, one of the easiest things that happens, you crack your screen, you break your screen. Sometimes you break the LED behind the glass that protects your screen. And guess what you have to do? You go to the Apple store, you talk to them geniuses, and then they're like, you can't really repair it yourself, and it's going to cost you anywhere between $300 to $500 to replace it. At that
Despite
point,
the fact
it's
that
like
it took them less than $200 to even produce that part. Like,
Right.
parts and labor should not be as expensive as they are in an industrialized system. Like, we have the ability, we have the technology. Like, they are mass producing these things in the millions. Like, didn't like the iPhone 13 just last year or whatever sell, or was it this year?
Technically this year, but yeah, it was during fall last quarter.
Yeah, fall last quarter, iPhone 13. Like, every year they create so much more e-waste because they brick their old phones and make everyone move to the new platform. Like, by the millions. And it's insane to think that these devices, they aren't outdated. they've been purposefully nerfed and slowed down by the company so that you have no choice but to buy the new phone. Like, yes, you could in theory if you like turn off like you can't even turn off updates anymore on most devices.
Not as much, not as much. Like, there's still things that, well, here's the workaround. Oh, you don't want to update the software for your phone internally? Oh, I'm sorry, you can't use this phone app unless you update your phone internally.
Yeah. And because the App Store is so shut down, like despite the fact that they've had like hundreds of lawsuits against it, the App Store is so secluded, and you need to pay just to even have your app be in the App Store and available. Like, yes, technically you are talking about a market, but like the last time anyone had to pay to be part of the market, you're essentially saying that you're taxing individuals, which makes you a government and therefore subject to the rights of the people. I'm just like, it's insane. I'm just,
it's so convoluted because like this is where you get the conversation of like your parents or even your grandparents saying they don't make them like they used to anymore. You know, it's the same, and that's the perfect example is definitely cars, right?
Yeah,
cars starting from like the 50s up until the 70s. I'll even give it to like the 80s, where they had less technology put into them, less electronics put into them. You could repair it yourself.
Oh,
I mean,
easily.
Granted, like you said, right?
Like I can work on my Miata, no problem. Despite the fact that it does have a computer, the computer is so simple. All it does is it tells the engine when to turn on, when to turn off, the sparks. Like it really doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot for your car to be
not
working.
At all.
But if you're talking like the old analog, like I want to say like 50s, 60s, and like late 70s, right before they started using computers in cars for all the really simple systems that don't actually need computers but can be like based off of just the existence of electricity. It's weird. Like a lot of analog vehicles will run until like basically until either it blows itself up and will run on anything. Like there's they call them oil burners because literally like it's actually kind of funny. Like you can technically run the Model T on any form of gas, either gasoline or petrol or alcohol. Like it will burn anything that is liquid and combustible. It can run on it as long as you tweak like I think it uses a carburetor. I can't remember, but basically, as long as you tweak it the right way, it will run on almost anything. Now nowadays, if you try to run a newer car on anything less than like 87 octane gasoline with 10% ethanol added to it, you'll basically nuke your engine unless you live at a really high altitude.
Didn't think about that.
No, like it
no, I did not think about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's and it's all to meet these really weird emission standards that make no sense. Like somehow in the state of California, you need this catalytic converter that costs $1,000 for you to meet their emission standards. But literally 200 feet past the California state border, you can go into Arizona where they have no emission standards. Well, they used to have no emission standards. Now they do.
Right.
Or like Idaho, or like literally any of the states where they say, no, your car can straight pipe if you want to. Because it doesn't make any sense. We are not the leading polluters of the world. We're not even close to the leading polluters of the world that goes to China and India. Just by the sheer fact that between the two of them, they have half the Earth's population.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. No, like, we don't even come close in America. And somehow they believe that we're the ones that are negatively affecting climate change the worst.
I think it just comes to mentality at that point, right?
No,
Rather than
it's
actual
a certain
facts.
level of like self-importance. Like, no, our population of 360 million is doing way more damage than the populations of over 3 billion people. Not even close.
No.
Not even
No.
even close.
No, not at
Like
all.
it's insane. The hoops that our environmentalists jump through, like without doing any amount of research, they can blame every natural disaster on America for some reason.
Yeah, because don't you know we like taking the glory for almost everything.
Yeah, no, like we'll take all that negative glory whenever we can, but the second we do anything even remotely positive for the world, it's not good enough.
No, because we're the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're not the youngest country in the world, but we're pretty close.
A baby.
Yeah.
We're a baby.
We're still.
Yeah. We're
Well,
a
I
baby.
mean, we're about at the tail end of our empire. Empires fall every 250 years, give or take. America's pretty close. I think we're what? I think we're like 3 years away from our 250th anniversary.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. Shall
Yeah,
we?
no. Will America be here in 3 years? Wait, no. 76. 2026. That's 250 years, right?
I'm trying to math and I can't math right now.
I'm
Hold
pretty
up.
sure if 1776 was America's founding, not Independence Day, technically, we're
Yeah, it would be 26. It'd be
yeah.
26. It'd be
So
26.
we are
So 4
we're
years.
4 years.
Less than 3 years. Less than 4 years. Sorry, not less than 3. Less than 4
Yeah,
years.
we are less than 4 years away from 250 years of American greatness.
That's also considering if you want to consider the birthday literally on July 4th. But
I mean, it's give or takes. I mean, technically, the Declaration of Independence wasn't signed until August, but like, yeah,
yeah, technicalities,
Yeah,
right?
no,
It's like the technicalities. It's like, when do you want to celebrate the 150 years?
The
At the start
200
of the year, which I
yeah,
will.
no, like,
Which I
I
will.
definitely celebrate the new year, ring in the 250th year of American greatness.
Right.
If there's still an America or like a world.
If there's still a thing.
I mean, nuclear
Considering
winter
what's
is
going
just
on right
around
now?
the corner.
Oh, I'm ready to get my coat.
You're in California. You need a boat. You don't need a. You're not gonna need a coat. You're gonna need a boat.
Oh, I was gonna say a quote from a movie and I lost it.
Oh,
Oh, we're gonna need a bigger boat.
gonna
There you
need
go.
a bigger boat.
I was like, what was it? I was like, all right, cool. Aside from that, what's funny is that we didn't expect this route to go the way that it did for literally almost an hour. Because we're about 45 minutes in, roughly.
Yeah, give or
take. But small update, I finally was able to get Caleb to watch Dragon Ball Evolution.
It's the worst experience ever, but I'm happy I did it.
It was super enjoyable. Like, not in a way of like the movie was good. The movie is horrible. Like, it's horrendous.
Like, I've never seen The Room, but I'm pretty sure The Room is a better movie than Dragon Ball Evolution.
I want to say that they are relatively close to each other. The reason why you probably will think Dragon Ball Evolution is far worse is just because of your attachment to Dragon
Yeah.
Ball.
Yeah.
But The Room is really bad too. But it's like, at this point, it's hilariously bad. Although if I'd watched that movie when it first came out, I would have walked out after the first few minutes. I should.
Dude, I would have been
But-
like, if I were in the theater right then, the second they said Ozaru, like the way he's like King Piccolo and Ozaru, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm gone. I just like walked straight out, like not even cared. Like it's like my mom would have been there looking at me like, "What's wrong, Caleb?" And I'd be like, "Mom, this is trash. This is garbage."
Let's go. But that was the charm that I had watching the movie because I knew how bad it was. I mean, I watched it relatively when it first came out, but I never watched it since because, like we discussed, it's a really fucking bad movie.
It is
Like-
like the epitome of dumpster fire. Like it's a dumpster fire within a larger dumpster fire that has been like flash frozen, deep fried, and then re-dumpster fired.
Buried underneath the pile of Nintendo NES discs, NES cartridges of ET.
Yeah.
Out in that one desert. It's far
Yeah.
beyond it.
So
But-
worse.
The charm that I got from this movie was the fact that not only was it bad, but I was utterly surprised because I know you haven't watched this series, but the show Shameless, um, for you, Caleb, it's about this family, this very dysfunctional family that's run by this one big sister because their dad is a deadbeat hustler that likes to do a lot of illegal things in order to just get paid to do stuff. Like just get paid to like be a decrepit person in life. And he's also a really bad person, but apparently some people like his charm. There's some things about his character that aren't redeeming, but to each their own. But anyway, two of the characters from Dragon Ball Evolution are actually some of the main cast members of the show. So the character who plays Goku is Jimmy in Shameless, and if you haven't watched the series, there's a spoiler when I say anything beyond Jimmy. So Jimmy is Goku,
Jimmy!
and then Fiona for Shameless is Bulma. Not Bulma. Bulma. I was about to say Bulbasaur for some goddamn reason. Bulba.
Bulbasaur.
Squirtle. Charmander.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right.
But yeah, so it was a pleasant surprise because I was like, God, I hated this movie, but because I know that the things that these people are in afterwards, I was just like, oh, that's awesome. The movie's still bad though.
Yeah.
And one of the favorite things that Caleb pointed out was that Goku is super thirsty for the Diccolo.
Yeah. Okay. So, to those who have not seen this movie, the way they perceive Goku gaining his powers is anytime he is mildly aroused, he's all of a sudden, or he wants to show off for a person he is, intrigued by. So most of the time it's because Chi-Chi's around that he's actually able to do the things that he needs to do. Like use the airbender techniques to put out candles, because apparently that's a training method for some reason. That doesn't make any sense. The Kamehameha wave, which they don't even, it's the turtle destruction wave. Yeah. Anyway. Anytime Goku needs to perform in front of somebody he is attracted to, that's when he's able to do what he needs to do. So, in the final scene where he's fighting King Piccolo, he must be rock solid the entire time, because he pulls all of this, key shit out of his ass.
Literally.
Almost literally out of his ass. So, basically what I'm saying is he gay. He's so gay for Piccolo.
For Piccolo, he is extremely horny for Piccolo because if you don't really take notice of that aspect of the movie, you'll realize it after we told you, because he only uses his powers when he's mildly to sufficiently aroused.
Yeah, no, he wants that green Diccolo. I'm just saying, it's that green purple Diccolo all up in his Piccolo.
Oh man. But yeah, no, that was quite enjoyable. But yeah, other than that, we took a little bit of a break just because things didn't line up. But you know what? It's fun to regather and come back along and come back to this. You know what I mean? But yeah, I can't believe that the entire time we watched that movie, I was having such a great time. No, you're
having a great time because every 2 seconds it was just me going really? Come on! Or any number of reactions to just how absolutely horrendous this movie is, and it's pure crony capitalism, not even good capitalism. This is bad capitalism. It's like Chinese mass production capitalism. Doesn't make sense because it's not really, because it's enforced by the government. It's that bad. It is the worst, They didn't ask a single fan of the series.
No. And we talked about this. We talked about this very briefly because we didn't really make a comparison, but we kind of did when it came to The Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. Um, because the fact of the matter was that at least in that movie, they kind of followed the story. I to an extent, like that's a very harsh extent, but to an extent, they followed a majority of what actually went down in Avatar: The Last Airbender and put it into The Last Airbender.
Despite
Yeah,
that M. Night Shyamalan decided to make the Firebenders Indian because they're an island nation that had imperialist tactics.
but also that it was that, and also for the fact that his daughter was the inspiration for him making this movie as well. So I guess some correlation to Zuko, whatever, whatnot, was like, all right, cool. I remember that in some sort of
No,
interview or some
it's
sort of
so
article.
bad. Like, I haven't even
But
watched it, and I know how bad it is. Like, it's worse.
oh, you haven't watched it? You haven't watched The Last
No,
Airbender?
I refuse.
Oh, we are so
I
doing this. We are so doing this at some
I
point.
am not.
We're
You can't make me.
I will hold your hand because there are. So I was about to say something that probably would have annoyed you a lot more.
I've seen
no.
every teardown video that exists of this movie. I hate it so much. I don't even need to watch it to hate it this much. It is that bad. Like every single cue that makes sense in the world canonically, on top of what Michael DiMartino and whom I can't remember the other creator of Avatar.
I can't give that to you.
Yeah, no.
I'm not
Despite
fact checking.
everything that they've told us, technically speaking, the Fire Nation is imperialist Japan. But everything that they're taught is basically American rhetoric. Like, the basest of, basest American rhetoric. You know, we're going to the world. We're going to share our greatness with the rest of the world. Zuko actually says this, when he's facing off against his father. Is that an Overwatch figure? It looks like the gorilla dude from Overwatch. Am I... I don't know his name.
You're right. His name is Winston.
Winston.
Sorry. Sorry to distract you. You, but it felt like a moment.
No, for those of you at home listening to this, or wherever you might be listening to this, if you're listening to this at all, Jason, in his infinite wisdom, decided to pick up his small figure of Winston from Overwatch and slowly move it towards the camera until Winston was staring at me soullessly. Anyway.
But considering that they changed up so many things from the movie, from the series,
despite
insane.
The fact having an absolutely perfect Avatar: The Last Airbender, the series, is one of the more complete animations to have ever been created in the history of animation, especially as a non-Japanese animation. It is surprisingly whole. It follows a full story, several story arcs, for the sake of a completion of a story. It has all of the key character moments that are necessary, and you have the perfect roadmap to make a really decent movie. If you absolutely have to make a live action movie, you have tons of plot, you have tons of different experiences, and mind you, I agree that making each individual book their own movie kind of makes sense. As a matter of fact,
right.
I would even agree with having a two-parter fire book series.
Fourth book.
Third book.
Third book.
Yeah,
you're right.
so I would agree to that. That makes sense because the first half of the third book is Zuko discovering himself and everything, and the dichotomy of those two. And then the second half is Aang coming to terms with the fact that he's essentially going to have to kill the Fire Lord.
Right.
Until the very end, when lion turtle, comes out and I have infinite wisdom and I should be voiced by James Earl Jones, but I'm not.
Yeah, that was.
No,
I got you on that.
I honestly, I wish so much that
right.
James Earl Jones was the voice of the Lion Turtles, but it wasn't gonna happen.
Hey, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, they are making a live action
They've
series.
been joking about making a live action series for a while. Netflix is never going to complete it. And if they do, it's going to be worse than Death Note.
Well, here's the thing. Right now, they're working on One Piece, and because of their track record, we'll see what happens. I mean, here's the thing, though. When it comes to the live action Avatar, both original creators are out of the project. They, because Netflix wanted to take it a certain route, and I don't know if we talked about that on or off recording, but regardless, there is still a chance that it could possibly happen. You know, just like with Death Note, the only thing that made it worth it was what?
Willem Dafoe is
Say it.
Ryuk. That is the only good thing about
Yeah.
that is the only good thing about the live action Death Note is they got Willem Dafoe to play Ryuk, and he was perfection. Yeah, that was. I mean, the only better way is if like Ryuk's original voice actor came by and did it, but like,
Yeah. William Defoe William Defoe was a good
it was
Ryuk.
an almost perfect Ryuk. Because he was basically Green Goblin as Ryuk. It's just like so funny.
Well, I mean, that's the thing though. It's like, because that's the thing about William Defoe. I know we're going back to William Defoe and talking about Spider-Man stuff, but that was the hardest thing he ever had to do as Green Goblin, is to portray the duality of the Green Goblin in a fucking iron mask, or a metallic mask, whatever material it's made out
it's
of.
like plasticized like metal paint. Yeah, no, that to be able to act through a mask where you can't see a person's face is really difficult. It like to the point where they have to digitize Deadpool's mask just so that you can see his facial expressions.
Expressions. Yeah. I mean, same thing with Spider-Man
Yeah,
too.
Spider-Man's like eye thingy, like the optical thingies. I can't remember what it's called, but basically like the way acting through a mask is really difficult, guys. Like acting on the other side of a microphone, equally difficult, but in a different way. Because at least you have the expressions that are created for you by the animator, or that you're trying to fill in with the vocal cues required for the animation to make sense. Because you wouldn't have somebody like all sweet and like, like happy-go-lucky, but sounding like ridiculously depressed, unless it's for the sake of comedy, which totally happens all the time. Like, gosh, there's so many different things. Why?
And to tack on to that, that's why you should appreciate Andrew Garfield in Amazing Spider-Man, because he literally acts with his entire damn body.
Out of necessity.
And that's the thing, is like, because what is he supposed to do? Like, the entire time they made the movie, they cut a lot of his scenes to make him look like a cool guy douchebag. And I know we're going back to the Spider-Man conversation again, but it's just like,
we're coming back to this because it's necessary. So technically speaking, like 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, technically speaking, Spider-Man is now part of Death Note.
yeah, William Dafoe.
Through
two levels.
Willem Dafoe. That means that Death Note exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I mean, I guess. Hey, you know what though? I mean, it has to happen because there are multiverses. So technically, you are correct, and that's the thing. You now you have, was it, you said 6 or is it 7? 7 degrees, right?
Like I think
7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
I think that's what it's called. I think it's like this. Like basically, everyone in media at one point in time is like related to Kevin Bacon because of the sheer number of movies he was in. We brought this up like a while ago, but like,
yeah, but you could also correlate it to the MCU and Kevin Bacon, because MCU now has rights to Fox's X-Men, and guess what? X-Men, you had the Master, who was Kevin Bacon. So
even more.
So yeah. So even the MCU, you could do 7 degrees of separation for the MCU, which would lead down to Spider-Man. No matter what you do, it's going to lead to Spider-Man, because guess what? Anytime you can connect anyone to the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
can connect him to Spider-Man.
It can always lead to Spider-Man.
I wonder how like closely related like other animes are to Spider-Man. Like I wonder like how many like anime you could like realistically connect through like either like memes or like the animated series or anything like that. Like I honestly wonder, because Spider-Man is arguably like if one of the most beloved superheroes around the world, right? Because
Yeah, because he's inherently good. He is morally
yeah,
good
yeah,
overall, even with the exception of the Venom symbiote, attaching
yeah,
to him. He is inherently
good. Yeah, he does his best, which is sometimes all that we can ask of people is to do their best.
Yeah.
But like,
Um,
I mean, so far as iconic superheroes go, Spider-Man and Superman are about as like iconic as they get.
you have Spider-Man, Superman,
Mm-hmm.
Batman. Who else is there? Who else is iconic on the Marvel
You know, it's kind
side?
of funny
I guess
how
you could
like
say
little kids all really love Batman. Like, what parent thinks that it's a good idea to tell their little kids that they can grow up to be superheroes only if they die?
if their
Yeah,
parents
only
die.
if their parents die. Like, how is that a
I
good like
mean,
message to give to little kids? Not only that, to like
well,
exact your revenge upon the populace of a city of like people just for the sake of
in
getting
grades.
some form of closure on your parents' death, despite the fact that you've never actually gone to the therapy necessary for you to come to terms with their death, and then to put into danger little kids, mostly men, young boys between the ages of like 14 and 18, all for the sake of perpetuating your ever growing need to feel vindicated for your actions. Like, okay, no, I actually love Batman, so like my teardown of Batman is purely directed
we
at
we 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 talked
yeah.
about that. What do you call it though? Like literally, some of the greatest superheroes that people love is because their parents are dead. Let's see, who do we have on the list? We have Batman,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. Superman, technically, even though he got raised by adoptive parents, his actual parents are
Well,
dead.
no, the Kents are still his family. Like there's no
Yeah, no, I didn't say I didn't say family. I
parents.
said
Okay, yeah.
parents.
So
Parents.
Elsa, she's a superhero and her parents are dead.
I didn't know we were gonna break it down into Disney right now. I mean, you can say the same shit about Tarzan. Who else
Literally
is
any
there?
Disney character, their parents are dead. Cinderella,
Oh,
parents are dead. Jasmine, mother is
it's
dead.
assume
Aladdin,
that
both of his parents. Well, actually,
Mowgli.
no, his father's alive,
Who?
but his mother is dead.
Who? Who are we talking about? What was the last one you just
Aladdin.
said? Oh yeah, because I totally forgot about the third movie, King of Thieves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Um, I was starting off with superheroes, but I guess we could go into Disney characters too.
I mean,
I
superheroes
mean,
are Disney characters now.
I'm just gonna stop talking because yes, you are
Yeah,
also
yes,
correct.
yes.
You
That
are
is
also
that is
very
the
correct.
ever all-consuming like reality. You know what needs to happen is Disney just needs to buy Russia, so that they're part of the MCU, and therefore they can't destroy us with nuclear winter because we'll just reset the timeline.
Oh my goodness, get Thanos up in here. Get him up here right
See, the
now.
funny thing is, I'm actually pretty sure Disney could buy Russia.
I'm almost certain they could too, but I don't think Disney wants a land of ice and snow
What are you talking
when
about? They
they
could have
already.
the Elsa theme park of the century. Like all
Uh,
of northern Russia is basically just Elsa's palace.
oh my goodness, Elsa's
Yeah, the
kingdom.
queendom. It is the
Queen.
it
I
is
did
the
say kingdom.
queendom
Queendom.
of Arendelle because she is the queen.
Okay, so that means on top of us watching The Last Airbender, because I'm making you watch that
Damn
with me.
it.
Um, we could follow it up with Frozen. How does that
It
sound?
sounds good. Okay. So like a little bit of good with a whole lot of bad. I'll take it.
Do you want to do? I'm assuming you want to do a whole lot of bad first, and you want to
Oh
do a whole
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
good
because
first.
like the cold never bothered me anyway. Um Not only that, it leads in perfectly because the final scene of the last Airbender movie, they're in the North Pole, which makes sense.
Um, you heard it here. You heard it here. Disney will soon own Avatar.
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, though.
why wouldn't Disney buy Nickelodeon?
because then at that point they become a monopoly. I mean, they're already monopolizing now, but
when has Disney ever not been a monopoly?
Since they have to look at Coca-Cola or Nestle.
I don't see any difference. They're all owned. They're all owned by each other. They all own stocks in each other. Disney owns more stocks in Coca-Cola than Coca-Cola, I'm pretty sure.
We gotta do some research on that. We'll put that in the next recording.
We'll figure that out. We'll figure that
out. But as far as it goes, I believe we are out of time
for this episode.
Of
99.99% nonsense. Thanks for listening.
Have a good one. Peace.